America is the greatest country in the world. Thanks for being here on the First TV, our special, The Redistricting Rumble. Today's special is about the census and redistricting. Now, there's a lot of things that we need to do to save our country. We have, think of it like different columns or different pillars upholding America. We have economic things. There's national security pillar. There's the domestic crime pillar. There's the pillar of virtue. And then there's also a column of politics and all the things that are necessary to keep America thriving. If we focus just on that political pillar, the single most important political thing that we need to do in our country, no question about it, because it would guarantee victory for decades, for 100 years, is redoing the census. Getting an accurate count of where people live and not counting illegal aliens in that census. I've been saying this for a couple of years now, so you can imagine the joy I felt when Donald Trump wrote this on his Truth Social account about the need to do exactly that. We need to redo the census, which is just counting Americans, because that count determines how many congressional seats every state has. And the number of congressional seats determines how many electoral college votes that state has for the presidential elections. If we do this accurately, an accurate count, not including illegal aliens, then the Democrats would have to win every single swing state in order to win the White House. So when you do a census, right, and they count the number of people, and they're like, okay, so California has 52 congressional seats. Why does California have 52 congressional seats? Because they have 39,500,000 people in it. But what if they don't? What if they don't have 39,500,000 people in it? Each district is 765,000 people. If the census is off by millions of votes, then we're talking about a lot of congressional seats that are not in California and instead are in Tennessee. Now, how do I know? How can I stand here before you today and talk about the census being wrong? How do I know that is wrong? They admitted it. The census was done in 2020 under Biden. 2022, the Commerce Department, which controls the census, they released this article with the headline, 2020 census undercounts in 6 states, overcounts in 8. Now let's look at the states that they undercounted in. They undercounted in Arkansas, Florida, Mississippi, Tennessee, Texas. Those are all red states. Illinois is the only state they undercounted in, but just barely. Overcounted Delaware, Hawaii, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New York, Rhode Island, whoops. The only red states they overcounted in were Ohio and Utah. This is their own analysis. Now, look at the states they overcounted in. The state they overcounted in the most, right up there with Hawaii, is Rhode Island. It turns out that the Commerce Secretary at the time of the census was the former governor of Rhode Island. Weird. And Rhode Island now still has 2, little old Rhode Island still has 2 congressional seats. If we have an accurate count, just based off the Biden census's own analysis, then the Democrats would have to win every swing state to win the presidency. Trump did not need to win every swing state to win the presidency. He did win every swing state. He didn't need to. But the Democrats would have to win every single one of them. And there's no way that would happen. First of all, there's no leader in the Democratic Party right now at all, right? So, but let's say like Newsom, he's trying to, weasel his way to the top. So let's say he gets it. You're telling me in 2028, the Newsom-Buttigieg ticket is going to completely swing the 2024 election results? So the Democrats go from losing every swing state to winning all of them? And then picking up Idaho or something like that? Like, there's no way. There's no way in 2028 the Democrats are going to win Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Virginia, and North Carolina, and Georgia. There's no chance. So that's why politically, we must give an accurate census. Now, there's 2 things happening. First, just an accurate count of where people live. Also, keep in mind, the census was done before COVID. There was a ton of migration of people throughout the country after COVID. So that's another reason why we should do another one. But I just want an accurate count of where people are, what states they live in, and not count illegal aliens. So this is Democrats. You want to argue, like Go ahead. If Democrats want to say, no, we demand an inaccurate count and we must count people of other countries. Go ahead. You guys go make that argument. That's great. Democrats are complaining now that the redistricting is unfair. We'll get to redistricting in a minute here. But we have this chart here. These are blue states. These are, the blue line is the popular vote that Kamala Harris got. And the green line is the representation that Democrats have in that state for congressional seats. So you have states where 40, 50, 60% of the vote is Harris, but they have 100% of the congressional representation. Let me flip it around. You have states where 40%, 50% of the vote is for Republicans, but Republicans have no congressional seats. This all has to change. But let's table redistricting for just a little bit here. Let's talk about the constitutionality of redoing the census. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. It says, the actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress. Okay, so like right when we start here, we gotta count the number of people right away, 1788. And, here's what's relevant to us, and within every subsequent term of 10 years. Within every 10 years. Is 5 years within 10 years? We last did it 5 years ago. Is 5 years within 10? Of course. So can we redo the census? Yes. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you have to wait exactly 10 years. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you have to do it in a year that ends in 0. It just says you got to do it within 10 years, and 5 is within 10. Now let's give another scenario where that would be applicable. Let's say the Democrats win. Let's say we don't do this and the Democrats win in 2028. And so it's time to redo the census in 2030. And Gavin Newsom says, you know what, let's not do the census. It would hurt us politically. And they decide, you know what, let's skip it. Let's do the census in 2033 after the next election. That would be unconstitutional because that would not be within 10 years. That would be longer than 10 years. That would be outside of 10 years. You can't do that. So 15 years is not within. 5 years is. It's so obvious that we are allowed to redo a census. In a perfect world, we do the census every year. Like, why even wait 10? Like our founders, that was like the max they gave. You got to do it at least every 10 years, guys. In classic government, we wait till the very last minute. Maybe our founders would have preferred every 2 years or 4 years. Maybe even 5 years is too long of a time. So of course we can redo the census. The second issue, constitutionally, is a bit trickier, and we'll talk to a wonderful guest about this coming up in a little bit who can speak even deeper to it. But it's the question of who you count. So can we do it with less than 10 years? Yes, of course. But who you count? Illegal aliens? So the question is, what is a whole person? So let's read, this is the beginning of that clause of the Constitution I just read. It says, representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states, which may be included within this union, according to their respective numbers. There you go. We're counting, and that's how many Congress people we figure out. Which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons. Okay, what does that mean? Including those bound to service for a term of 10 years, excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. Okay, so we got to do this fast. This is about how different categories of people are counted. First, indentured servants, counted. If you're an indentured servant, you're counted in the census. If you're an Indian, not counted. If you're a slave, 3/5 of a person. Now, the 3/5 compromise, one of my favorite points to make. I'll do it in 60 seconds. Every kid has been told, including you and me, in middle school, how horrible it was that Americans only counted slaves as 3/5 of a person. Oh, look how racist they were. They thought that slaves weren't fully human. They only count them as 3/5 because they're black. Wrong. The Northerners wanted this because the Southerners wanted slaves to count as a full person so that the South could get more congressional apportionments. Southerners wanted slaves counted as full persons so that they could get more people counted so that they could get more congressional votes to keep slavery. The Northerners wanted slaves not counted, not because they didn't think slaves were people, but for the exact opposite reason that the Southerners, they wanted the South to have less representation so that the North could have more so they could end slavery and free the slaves. If the Southerners had their way, a slave would have counted as 10 people. just so they could get more congressional apportionment and continue slavery. And the Northerners didn't want them to count at all so that they could eliminate slavery. We were taught that completely backwards in middle school and high school. But the Democrats are doing the same thing today with illegals. They want illegals to be counted so that as full persons, so that they in blue states get more congressional representation and can usher in amnesty, among other things. We want we want illegals to be deported. But in the meantime, we want them not counted as persons so that they don't count towards congressional apportionment. Because why would they count towards congressional apportionment if they can't vote? Now, the guys who wrote the Constitution, they didn't talk about illegal aliens, but what do you think? Thomas Jefferson intended foreigners to count when it comes towards congressional apportionment? It doesn't make any sense at all. There's a bunch of British people here illegally. You think Thomas Jefferson would be like, oh yeah, we definitely got to count them so that the states have the right. No, that's ridiculous. Of course they wouldn't have wanted that. It needs to stop. Don't count illegal aliens in the census, because the census is about congressional apportionment and illegal aliens can't even vote. Now, we do an accurate vote. We do a vote with a count, so we do an accurate count. Then we do a count without illegal aliens. Third step, redistrict. We'll talk to Sean Spicer in just a minute all about this, but a quick history. Gerrymandering started in 1812. It's nothing new. Named after this guy, Elbridge Gerry. And I think it was pronounced actually Gary, but we call it gerrymandering now. He was in Massachusetts, and he had a district made to protect him. And the press at the time said it looked like a salamander. So that's why it's called gerrymandering. And they have a political cartoon from back in the day here. It's like, this is how they made fun of it. But the point is, this is nothing new. And the left is furious about Texas doing this because now we're finally doing it. The blue states have been doing, there's the seat. The blue states have been doing this forever. I think all the blue states are gerrymandered out of control. J.D. Vance had some fact the other day, and we'll ask Sean Spicer about it, but he said there's 5 Democrat states that had 45% Republican voters, but only 18% Republican congressmen. That's already in the blue states. So it's our turn to play the game. And us playing the game is just accuracy. We want an accurate census, only counting citizens, and we want to redraw the lines. And if we do that accurately, the Democrats will never win again. We have Sean Spicer coming up next, then someone from the Center for Immigration Studies about the constitutionality of not counting legal aliens in the census. I cannot stress this enough, and it's so great to hear the president agree. This is the single most important political thing we can do if you want conservatives and MAGA and Republicans to win for the next 100 years. This must be done immediately.
Every major group that grades the fairness of congressional maps gives your state an F. Common Cause, a nonpartisan government watchdog, even says your map, and I'm going to quote, represents a nearly perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction. The reality is that the violation of people's voting rights is what Texas is attempting to do. That's what's wrong with their efforts right now. And the fact that the president of the United States knows it and nevertheless is asking them to do it. That is what's wrong with what we're seeing right now. Democracy is at stake.
What? Great Sean Spicer is here. Sean Spicer Show, Sean Spicer on Twitter, Sean Spicer everywhere. Sean, how are you, brother?
I'm great. I love that clip, though. That may be one of my favorite political clips of all time.
Say more. Why?
Well, so let's be clear. The Department of Justice, voting rights, the Civil Rights Division, told Texas that their current map was in violation of the Voting Rights Act. So Texas said, great, we'll redistrict it. Now, no one has to think that they're going to be dumb about doing it. They're going to maximize it politically, like every other state has done since Elbridge Gerry back in his days in Massachusetts. So let's look at what happened. Texas Democrats said, no, we don't want to do that. So we're going to prevent the state of Texas from getting a quorum in our legislature, and we will flee the state, as we've done before, so that the Texas House of Representatives cannot do what the Department of Justice said that they would do. So they flee to political sanctuary cities, Chicago, Boston, New York, San Francisco, etc., in states that have maximized political gerrymandering, like Illinois, like Maryland, like Massachusetts. Now, just to give you a hint, Massachusetts is run by Governor Maura Healey, who said, I'm going to do the same thing. Massachusetts has 9 members of Congress. Mike, do you know how many are Republican?
0.
0. So they didn't really seem to care. And I'm from New England. It may not be the biggest Republican state, but they don't have 0 Republicans. Maryland redistricted their entire state so that there's only 1 Republican left. Illinois, where J.B. Pritzker, that governor that you just played, they've completely partisan redistricted their state, to Kristen Welker's credit, and I generally don't give credit to anyone on NBC or Kristen Welker. She at least read that report that says these guys are the epitome of what political gerrymandering is. And what did J.B. Pritzker said? But that's not what I'm talking about. Wait a second. If it's good for the goose, why is it not good for the gander? Democrats led the way in doing this, and they're just pissed that Republicans are doing somewhat of what they did.
Yep. Why do you think the Republicans are now finally getting in this game, and even now in the red states, even finally playing?
It's a variety of reasons, Mike. It's a great question because Democrats have been doing this better than we have. But it's also changing demographics. More people are moving to Texas because they're tired of the woke DEI policies. And so at some point, Texas says, well, we might as well take advantage of this. Florida did it really well. But remember, Mike, here's the one thing that you've got to keep in mind. So if you're a member of Congress and you have a 65, 70% district that favors your party, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, because California faced this in the 2000 redistricting cycle. They don't want to go home. They don't want to campaign. They don't want to have it. So these members of Congress are kind of like, hey, I'd like my 70% district so I don't actually have to, talk to people, go home, do my job. So what happens is, in order to maximize these, you might have to take a 70% seat and make it 60 so you can get more. And that's what Texas is doing. They're squeezing these districts so they can get 5 additional Republican-leaning districts. But they do so, in some cases, at the peril of a Republican member of Congress that might have a 70% district that's going to have a 60 or 62, meaning they might actually have to go home. They might have to talk to constituents. They might actually have to be responsive. And they don't like that. So the reason that, to your question, why this isn't maximized is that some of these states that are technically majority Republican are like, hey, we're good with where things are. We'd rather not maximize the state because then that means I have to do a little bit more work.
Great point. On the racial aspect of this, because you went back to the Department of Justice ruling, which is the Supreme Court ruling on this. They got you coming and going, because let's say you have a bunch of black people in this district and you put them all in one district. Well, then you're accused of packing. But if you take this black area and you cut it up into a bunch of districts, then you're accused of, what do they call it, cutting or slicing or something. So you can't win. Like what should one do then?
Well, there's 2 things that are about to happen. The Supreme Court's going to vote on the Voting Rights Act and whether that's legal. Because remember, they call them majority-minority districts, meaning that a majority of the people in the congressional district are minorities. Now, keep in mind, generally speaking, this applies to black Democrats. Think about a Byron Donalds in Florida. He represents a majority white district. Burgess Owens in Utah, majority white district. On the Republican side, this isn't a problem. We treat everybody equally. They run in a primary. The best person wins. On the Democrat side, that's what they do. They create majority-minority districts so that that can happen. It's almost like they don't want the competition. And the Department of Justice is actually looking at this and saying, can you gerrymander specifically on the issue of race? Because in theory, right, most districts have a mix of people, black, white, Hispanic, etc., Asian. And yet here we are in the case of these Democrat districts where they're literally creating not only a Democrat district, but one that would 99% of the time result in a black Democrat representing it. And the Department of Justice is saying, is that really what we were supposed to be doing, is guaranteeing outcome in that way?
Okay, here, I got a lot of little questions, but here's my big question of all. I'm getting the sense of like, all right, here's how it's always been done. Now the Republicans are playing the game. And now Gavin Newsom and Massachusetts, New York, they're like, now we're going to squeeze our states even more, and JD Vance like, oh, you can only squeeze them still so much. There's not much juice left in that squeeze. Okay, so now we got this crazy battle, and let's say it keeps going to this extreme where now Texas is like Massachusetts with no Democrat seats, right? And we keep doing this. It's just a mess. And I think there's a lot of people who are like, whoa, what should they look like? Like if an alien came in from outer space and was only motivated by what is just and pure, what did our founding fathers, for instance, like what was their vision of how these lines should be drawn?
Well, before I get to that, let me just say one quick thing. Remember, on the Republican side, whether it's Texas, Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, technically New Hampshire, and Florida, the Republican governor and the legislature have free reign to do all this. I don't think you're going to see anything beyond maybe Texas or Missouri do it. On the Democratic side, it's a lot of bluster. So J.B. Pritzker and Gretchen Whitmer and a couple other people are talking about doing it. Even Gavin Newsom, he has to actually go to his own voters and get permission in a special election because they put a state constitutional amendment in place about redistricting. So Gavin's talking a good game, but it would have to go in front of California voters before anything ever happens. Same thing in New York. So keep in mind, in those Democratic states, most of them have squeezed that juice already, and they would have to get special permission from their voters to try again. That's very different than the states that Republicans control and how they can handle it. To your question about the framers, I mean, look, it's in the eye of the beholders. I think if you really went back in time, they would argue that they would like it more geographically to make sense. So in other words, if you look at, I live in the 8th Congressional District of Virginia. We have made that district so gerrymandered, there's like this bridge, they call it the land bridge into McLean, just to get different aspects of Democratic voters. In Maryland, as I mentioned, they've created one single district for Andy Harris, and they've kind of done it in a very, very like snaky type of way to pull in, you know, I think the framers would argue, and I'm taking some liberties here, that they would rather make it more geographically smart. So you have all of a city, all of a county, so that that representative is representing all of, say, X county or Y city, as opposed to now where you could take a major city, and Texas is going to be a case like this. We'll carve up the city of Austin in like 5 different ways. So I think the framers would argue, hey, it would be better to have all of Austin represented by one member of Congress, or all of, you know, X county, Tarrant County, or something like that. But what's happened though is that we've gotten more data and more sophistication. We've been able to say, we're going to go get that neighborhood or that street in Tarrant County, pull it out and combine it with this other thing. I think the framers probably would have a problem with that, but I would argue that some probably would say, great, good for you. You know, if you control the state legislature, to the winner goes the prizes. And so I don't know that there'd be a single view of the framers.
Yeah, and I want to be very clear. Like, I'm okay with the answer now being, but whatever, we're gonna win. like I'm happy to now finally be playing the game.
And I'm with you on this, because my view is, you win the state legislature if you have the ability to do it. They would, the other side, you know, it's funny. I literally, you played that clip of Kristen Welker. The Democrats literally did this for years. Illinois, Massachusetts, and now suddenly Republicans are attacking democracy. I'm sorry, like, it is mind-blowing that it's like my show and Mike Slater that are covering this and no one else. It is mind-blowing. If it was bad for democracy then, you heard J.B. Pritzker. He couldn't answer the question. Why is it different? Oh, because it's, Texas. It's bigger.
Mid-election cycle.
Yeah, they're in cycle. They one-upped us. I mean, there's no reason. They've done it. I'm with you. To the winner goes the spoils. I'm sorry. You get the prizes. You win. And if you really think that's that big of a deal, then go win the Texas legislature and redo it your way. But they do it to the Republicans every day of the week. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say we play the game and we do it right and we go all in. Because I know J.D. Vance and a bunch of other White House guys met with the lawmakers in Indiana to try to get another one or two votes there. Right? So they're like playing offense, this White House this year. How many more votes are we talking about here? And how many electoral college votes are we talking about?
Well, so that's a great question. I mean, to your point, like, you squeeze 5 more out of Texas, it's 5 more. I mean, the electoral college is set, right? So it's by the number of 2 senators for every state, and then the number of that. So you usually, in every state but 2, Maine and Nebraska, you get all of the electoral votes. Nebraska and Maine split theirs by electoral college. So in Texas, it's not going to change the outcome of the electoral college, because a Republican would always get Texas, regardless of whether the split among the delegation is, say, 16-13 or 15-14, you're still going to get it. But it's a bigger deal. I mean, to your point about maximizing this, as I said, in Florida, you could probably squeeze out 2 to 3 more. In New Hampshire, you could squeeze 1 more. Missouri, 1 or 2. Indiana, probably 2. I just don't think it's going to happen. Okay, I think in Texas you will get the 5. Indiana, I think, would be the only other state that's potentially, maybe Missouri, actually. So, and at that, so I think realistically, you're talking about 5, maybe 6 or 7 at most. But when you have a 3-seat majority in the House, getting an extra 5, not a bad deal.
No, and I guess my last question for you, I guess the question I asked was also maybe more of a census question. Like if we redo the census and we don't count illegal aliens,
right?
That's the next.
Oh, that's huge.
Comment on that. How many votes are we talking about there?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. There are studies that suggest 20 to 25 seats, right? And just so people understand this, because the way the law currently works is we count bodies, not citizens. So if you can flood all these people into San Francisco or San Diego and California, suddenly California gets more members of Congress because there are more bodies. Now, I want to be clear on something because I had Ken Cuccinelli on my show the other day, who's a former attorney general in Virginia and leading one of these efforts. We don't count tourists. If you're in this country visiting or a student, you don't get counted. If you're a diplomat, you don't get counted. But for some reason, if you're illegally in this country, we count you. That's insane. So it benefits Democrats. They know it. They flood the zone. And of course, where do they largely go? California or certain areas of Texas. That then determines how many bodies are in that area, which is important when it comes to counting, how many congressional. That's your electoral college question. Because now you've upped California to 52 states instead of seats, as opposed to probably 48. So this is critical what President Trump is talking about, and it's really important. And as I said, it should make sense. Why, if you don't count diplomats, if you don't count tourists, if you don't count students, do you suddenly count illegal aliens? That's the line you draw?
With Howard Lutnick now in charge of the Commerce Department and the census, do you think this could get done before the 2028 election?
Absolutely. No, probably before the next presidential. I don't know that you could pull it off before then. But I think it's on track to help us in the next, not maybe 2028, 2026, but 2028.
2028, yeah, that's the one I was asking about. Can it get done by 2028?
Absolutely.
Oh, love it. Sean Spicer Show, Sean Spicer on Twitter, Sean Spicer right here on the First TV. Sean, you're the man. Appreciate you.
You bet, Mike. Thank you.